Latest episode of Donald Trump's Deal or No Deal has resulted in no deal. It is August 1st. Canada and the United States have failed to reach a new deal by today's deadline. In fact, what we saw from President Donald Trump yesterday was an increase in tariffs on Canadian imports, raised the rate from 25% to 35%. Let's get down to the bottom of this and the latest in this trade battle. We go back to Ian Lee. He's been on the program a couple of times, been so impressed by the insight he provided us. So Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business joins us now on the line. Ian, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much, Elias. My pleasure.
Okay, so there's a lot of talk about the increase to the tariff. I don't hear a lot of talk about the actual damage that is being inflicted by this move or by the current lack of a trade deal. Can we get to that?
Yes.
Could we be maybe overhyping some of the damage here? What's your take?
You've asked excellent question, a very good strategic question. Okay, so, and I'm going to use empirical data. The Royal Bank of Canada, their chief economist, and separately the Bank of Canada in their most recent report, independently, separately, concluded that about 90% of the goods from Canada continue to go into the States as exports, tariff-free, because they're CUSMA compliant. CUSMA, of course, is the trade agreement that was negotiated in 2017 with then first-term President Donald Trump. Okay, what that means in plain English, and the bank, this is a Bank of Canada number, they estimate that the overall net cost to the Canadian economy of these tariffs imposed by Donald Trump to date, thus far, is about 5%. Now, 5%, of course, is greater than zero, but it is a lot less than what Europe's paying or what other countries are paying. I'm not trying to rationalize this. I don't support tariffs whatsoever. But you are right. It is nowhere near as bad as the hype. But now let me sort of contradict myself. And I don't dispute these numbers I've just given you, okay? 90% of all of our goods that are exported to the States are going in tariff-free today. So the net cost of tariffs is about 5%, very small. The problem is this. Trump is, I think the reason he put the tariffs up yesterday is he's trying to squeeze the Canadian negotiators in Washington because clearly they are not offering yet what he wants us to offer up. So he's putting the heat on us. He's putting the squeeze on us. He's trying to pressure us to offer up more compromise. I surmise, I don't have inside information, I'm not in the room, none of us are, but we can look at the public record of what Donald Trump's been saying for the last several months, or for that matter, several years, and what past American administrations have been complaining about, for that matter. It's on the record in the annual report of the Trade Commissioner of the United States to the Congress. They have repeatedly, year after year, said they don't like our supply management. This is not a secret. They don't like our Telecom Act that prohibits American corporations from coming in and offering telephone services, phone services. That's on the record. They don't like the fact that we have protectionism for our airline industry and banking against American competition. So we know what they're upset about. We know what they want. We know that Trump did increase the tariffs last night. So I think what he's trying to do is increase pressure on the Canadians to offer up more compromises. So far, the tariffs have not hurt us that much, 5%, but we don't yet know what Trump is going to do if we don't compromise.
Is it fair for me to tack on to what you just said, also steel, aluminum, copper, and what they feel is the dumping of the product into their market?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. In fact, it's not so much what's happened for the last 3 months that worries me. It is what is going to come in the next week or two or 3 or 4 or 5 weeks that scares me. Because if a deal falls through, there's no deal. I think the markets are going to go crazy. I mean, the Canadian dollar is going to go down, and the Toronto Stock Exchange is going to go down, and Canadian capital is going to leave the country and go to the States. That's the risk. That's the fear. It's what's going to happen next, not what's happened in the last 5 months.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question here, and I want to assure you we're not going to take away your citizenship. We're not going to take away your passport, okay? However you answer this. All the things that we just mentioned, what you mentioned, right, about what the United States is focused on here. do they have legitimate complaints? Has Canada acted badly in those things? Does the U.S. have a point?
I at the risk of annoying and angering many of your listeners, yes, they do. We have kept out American. Just anybody listening who gets angry at me, can you name any American cell phone company that is here? Is Verizon in Canada? Is AT&T in Canada? Answer, no. Answer, why? Because it is prohibited under the Telecom Act of Canada. Is American dairy and milk and cheese and chickens allowed into Canada? Only tiny amounts at very large tariff levels. So we do have differential legislation that is more harmful or to the American airlines and the American banks. So we do have two sets of rules, one for ourselves and a more stringent set of rules for the Americans. So yes, they do have a point. But Elias, I just want to make one point here, because there's lots of Canadians saying, well, that's our choice. We're Canadians, we're sovereign. This protectionist legislation we have is not protectionist. It is exploitative of you and me. Why? Because when we keep out foreign competition, what do our domestic companies do? They stick the price up on you and me. So what is called protectionism is actually, I argue, exploitative. It leads to higher prices for Canadians on a whole range of services. So it's in our self-interest to get rid of that protectionist legislation that only protects that narrow number of people, the owners of those companies in those protected industries.
Now, conversely, Ian, there has to be things that the U.S. is doing that are not above board, where that Canada has legitimate gripes. And doesn't this have to be a part of this discussion here?
Yes. And I'll name it. I think that Trump and his MAGA talk, Make America Great Again, he's trying to, I think, it's my judgment, my interpretation, he's trying to put such a kibosh on the auto industry because he said very bluntly, he says, we want to make those cars in the United States. He's trying to bring them back to the Rust Belt. And remember, the Rust Belt states are the states that voted for Donald Trump. It wasn't New York City that voted for Donald Trump. It wasn't California. It was Ohio, Pennsylvania, upstate New York. These are the Rust Belt states, and he wants to bring more manufacturing there for the blue-collar people that supported Donald Trump. So they're trying to game the system on the manufacturing side vis-a-vis Canada's manufacturing sector.
How much blame are you putting right now on the Carney government in how they're negotiating, on how they're handling things? Do you put any blame on the Canadian side of things?
I put some blame on because I think that they are not yielding up and offering to compromise sufficiently to get the deal. I believe that a deal is absolutely essential for Canada. Forget the states. For Canada, we're only $2 trillion. They're $2.3 trillion. They're $30 trillion. We need them way more than they need us. I know people don't like to hear that. We all like to think we're equal with the United States, which is a load of hogwash. We are. Pierre Trudeau said it 50 years ago. We're the mouse, and they're the 5-ton elephant. And they're just so much larger than us. They're just massively larger than everybody in the world, bigger than the Chinese. And so we need access to that economy. And if we have to give up supply to management and the Telecom Act that prohibits American access, it is worth it for the greater good of our country. And I don't think Carney has offered that up yet in the negotiations, which is why Trump did the tariffs yesterday.
Supply management seems to be the sacred cow. Pardon the pun, in this country.
For 8,500 dairy farmers, yet 40 million people are being exploited with higher prices. The greater good argument here is so obvious that, compensate the dairy farmers because they have quotas that are valuable. Pay them off. That's what Australia did and New Zealand did in 1998. They bought them off, figured out the market value, and gave them, call it a severance package, like laying somebody off. You got to compensate them. So compensate the dairy farmers. I'm not saying stick them put the knife in the back. I'm saying give them market value compensation for those quotas, the value of those licenses, and retire supply management. And then that will allow us, I think, to do a deal with the Americans.
Ian, I have some pushback from listeners. And they say, well, you know what? In the States, they don't let our Canadian companies go in telecom. They don't let our Canadian companies in airlines, let's say, go in. Is that they're pushing back on you? But what's the truth of the matter?
I have been teaching the strategy course for 38 years and studying all this stuff dealing with exports to the States. The U.S. is the most open economy on planet Earth. I did not say it was perfect. I did not say they're angels or that they're perfect. I just said relatively to any other country, they are more open. That's why it's more competitive. That's why it's more ruthlessly capitalistic in the United States. That's why, if you firm goes under down there, too bad, so sad, you're screwed. It is much more viciously competitive because they don't protect their industries. So when people start spinning Canadians, oh, well, they're doing the very same thing. No, they are not. That's why they're the wealthiest country in the world per person, $89,000 per person per year, and we are only $62,000. We protect about a third of our economy from competition, and Adam Smith taught us 250 years ago, when businesses are protected from competition, what do? They put their prices up.
Uh-huh. Hey, Ian, let me tell you about this. Now, CJAD is part of Bell, right? Bell Media, right? So
yes.
Bell is the owner.
By the way,
yeah.
Bell's a great company. I'm not anti-Bell.
No.
I think they're a great company, but we need more competition. The Competition Bureau has been saying this, by the way, for 25 years. I testified on House of Commons Finance Committee sitting beside them, and they say the same thing.
Don't worry. That's not what I wasn't even suggesting that you thought that, but I want to inform you of something that just landed in our corporate inbox here.
Yeah.
Because Bell has just closed the deal with Ziply Fiber. They've bought an internet company in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. The deal's just closed. Bell now owns it. So Bell is expanding right now into the United States, which I think proves your point.
Canadian companies can go into the States, but American companies cannot come into Canada. That proves that's right. That does prove the point.
Ian, you are sharp as a tack. I love your insight. Come back real soon.
Okay, thanks very much.
Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business, an associate professor there.